Shalom. Shalom, everybody. This is Yehuda Glick from the Shalom Jerusalem Foundation. Today is the Memorial Day. In Israel, we are marking the Memorial Day for the Holocaust survivors and for the heroism. And we're also going to be speaking today about the San Remo conference. Today is 100 years to the San Remo conference. So thank you for joining me in Jerusalem. Thank you for joining me. And we're going to start talking. The San Remo conference was held in 1920. After the First World War, the Allied powers that formed the League of the Nations and decisions would be transferred to the United Nations in 1946, determined the new territories to be formed out of the former Ottoman-ruled lands of the Middle East. They came to the conclusion that the land of Israel should be administered by Great Britain. For what purpose? For the purpose of Jewish settlement towards the re-establishment of the Jewish Commonwealth in the land of Israel. And that decision of the San Remo Conference was adopted by the League of the Nations. And that is the only time that the sovereignty over the land of Israel was determined in a legally binding document from the perspective of the law of the nations. So the only people who ever have been recognized by the international law as the sovereigns over Israel, including the West Bank, and as a matter of fact, including the East Bank of the Jordan River, are the Jewish people. And maybe some of us don't remember that. It was never given to Jordan. Jordan annexed the Judea and Samaria, so-called the West Bank of the Jordan River, in 1950. And that annexation was recognized only by Jordan and Pakistan. Which means there's never been a state of Palestine. It was never given to people called the Palestinians. And so, when we are talking about rights, we have to recognize that the entire discourse about legal rights in the land of Israel, including Judea and Samaria, is false. It's based upon a false narrative that has nothing to do with international law. Jordan was redistributed by Great Britain to the Hashemites in 1922, thereby ending the Jewish people's legal right to the East Bank of Jordan River. However, the legal claim of the Jewish people to all of Israel from 1949, as well as Jerusalem, as well as the West Bank of the Jordan River, is enshrined in the law of the nations and has never been superseded and has not been canceled. So when I take this formula and I try to think to myself, I try to look at issues and I try to give spiritual meanings, biblical meanings into issues that maybe others see as primarily geopolitical. But my tireless efforts concerning Har HaBayit, the Temple Mount, are an example of that exactly. So when I look at San Remo conference, and I ask myself, is there a spiritual significance or element to the gathering and the proclamation that came out of it? I think I don't need any superlatives. I don't need any exaggerating. If for the first time in almost 2,000 years, the international community accepts the right of the people of Israel to a state of its own, and what's even more prophetic, if you ask me what's even more prophetic, sorry, there's a little bit of a problem here. What's even more prophetic, in my eyes, that the fact that the basis of the borders were based on the atlas of Bible geography prepared by the Scottish Bible scholar George Adam Smith. So what do we see here? What was the base of the decision in San Remo? The base of the decision was the Bible. They took the borders of Israel and the Bible, both sides of the Jordan River, and they said, the only nation that has a right to this land is the people of Israel. By the way, the Arab population supported this decision. The solely elected representative of the Arab population was King Faisal, and he supported it. By the way, the only reason why today we have 21 Arab countries was because of them. So in San Remo, exactly 100 years ago, they said they began from the 19th of April to the 25th of April, and they announced their decisions on the 25th of April. The only reason we have today 21 Arab states, which were not existing at all before the World War I, was because of San Remo. And they came to the decision that Palestine, the only nation that has right to Palestine, is the people of Israel. And now, when I take this and I stay with my work on Temple Mount, and I ask myself, is there a connection, is there a relevance between the San Remo and the state of affairs that we find ourselves today concerning Temple Mount? Of course there is. The Arab world, who continues to deny the facts, they continue to deny the facts of the San Remo. I'm pointing out, the General Assembly in 1947, and 29th of November 1947, they came out with a recommendation. It's not something that's binded in international law. The Faisal agreement, the Arab agreement, came along and agreed. The only solely Arab leader, Faisal, accepted Israel as a Jewish state, and the Arabs till today are denying the truth. And here we're talking about truth. And just like they denied the truth of recognition of the state of Israel, they're denying the truth. And what did they want? They want today that the Yehuda and Shomron, Judea and Samaria, should be clean of Jews. And we settled there. And we settled there because we understand that settling there, we settled there in spite of the fact that they want us to be shalom from Malaysia, and shalom from Germany, and shalom for all the people who are watching us all worldwide. The only reason we settled in Judea and Samaria was because we don't accept the fact that they can allow Judea and Samaria to be clean of Jews. And the same thing we say about Temple Mount. We cannot allow ourselves that the Temple Mount should be clean of people who are faithful in God. And when I ask myself, today, when we are marking Yom HaShoah, today is the memorial day for the Holocaust. In Hebrew it's called the Memorial Day for the Holocaust and the heroism. I'm going to refer to that in 1 second. But first I just want to point out one thing. I'm not crazy about the terminology Holocaust. Holocaust is like a tragedy, something that happened like an earthquake. That's a Holocaust. But we're not talking about something that happened by nature. It's something that happened by human beings that did it. And human beings should take responsibility for what they did. So we're talking about a human catastrophe, but it's not a catastrophe, it's an action by cruel human beings. So when I mark the Memorial Day for what happened in the Holocaust, what did they want in the Holocaust? They wanted in the Holocaust, they wanted one thing. It's crazy. They wanted to erase the total dignity. They wanted to erase the entire dignity of the people of Israel. They wanted to erase the very existing of people of Israel. They stepped on us. They wanted to turn us into the numbers. They wanted to turn us into dirt. That's what they referred to us as. And when I ask myself, on the day of today, when we are marking the Memorial Day for the Holocaust and for the heroism. What was the heroism? There were 30,000 people involved in resistance at the time of the Holocaust. These people, they knew that they had no chance. Again, with a pistol against a tank, you don't work. With a Molotov bottle against the tank, they weren't going to stop the Germans. But, and this is so important, they were there to make sure that the people of Israel, of the Jewish people, just like they have to live in honor, they deserve to die in honor. And they say to the German people, you are not going to turn us into dust. You're not going to refer to us. We are human beings. And today, when we are standing up for the right to worship God on Temple Mount, we are standing for the same way. We are people who are faithful in God, and we want to express our prayer on Temple Mount, and you're not going to step on us. And you're not going to refer to us as dust. And if San Remo were more faithfully followed, could be that the history of the Jewish people of Europe would be different. Because the Jews would come to Israel because they would know that this is the Jewish state. And today, if we ignore the efforts of the Muslims to erase the rights of people who are faithful in God, to worship God, if we deny those facts, it's going to lead to a catastrophe. And therefore, we have to make sure that people who are believing in God can have a right to serve and worship God and hold on to their Bible. Where? On the Temple Mount. Shalom from New York, for Shalom from New Jersey. And we will never forget. We will never forget what we are here for. We have an assignment. And when I'm asked, is San Remo still relevant today? Or maybe it's just a historic occurrence? I want to say something very clear. The facts are relevant. Truth is relevant. The only relevance we have today is if they stop calling. I don't know if you're following me. I think there was some kind of problem here with the connection. If you're continuing to follow me, I'm repeating again. They're trying to refer to Israel as an occupying power. Israel is not an occupying power. We are the only country that has, the only nation that has received rights to exist here in Israel. And no, we did not occupy from any other country. Jordan, who tried to annex the Judea and Samaria, was turned down by the international world. And yes, this is the major historical occurrence that we have to make sure that the facts are relevant till today. And finally, I want to refer to the connection between the belief that God gave us the land. Because the Bible teaches us that the land was given to us by God. So why do we have to do something? Maybe God will give us, he'll keep his promise. And of course, the answer is true to any believer of God and anybody who reads the Bible. Right after Israel came out of Egypt, right after we came out of Egypt, immediately we spent 40 years, of course, in the desert, but then we came to Israel. And Joshua and the judges are full of the story that the people of Israel had to fight to implement these promises of God. And the implementation of the promises of God have to be respected. Because God made his promise, but he appointed man who was created in the image of God. And when we're talking about the international community, we're talking about mankind that was created in the image of God. And they have to speak up. And they have to respect. And that's what we're going to stand for. And if we're today on Yom HaShoah, we are understanding that the resistance powers, those youngsters in the Warsaw Ghetto who fought with Molotov bottles against the German monster, they give us the power to respect our dignity and to understand that we are here to come up and speak up and worship God where we deserve to. And we are here to set up the assignment that God has appointed us. The assignment of to be a light to the nations. The assignment to be a light to the nations. And this is a major assignment. And it's our obligation not to turn our back on the truth and not to sit passively to wait for God to do it. It's our obligation to take and to declare that God is the King of the world. He's the King of humanity. He's the one and only King. And we're supposed to do it on the Temple Mount. And we're supposed to announce His royalty, His regime of the world, and all those who are faithful in it. And therefore, in the Shalom Jerusalem Foundation, we are going to continue to put Jerusalem as the foundation of our faith. It's the foundation of my faith. It's the foundation of your faith. It's the foundation of faith. It's the place where Abraham announced the faith in God. He is the father of faith. And we are to turn the Temple Mount into the center of God in the world, into the center of His regime, into the center of His royalty over the world, the foundation of all faith. And we are to claim the land, and we are to claim the right to serve Him on His chosen place, Temple Mount. So keep in touch. Visit our website at shalomjerusalem.org. Visit our Facebook page, Shalom Jerusalem. Visit our YouTube channel, Shalom Jerusalem Foundation. Looking forward to seeing you. Share this wonderful, important words with all your acquaintances. Shalom from Jerusalem.